a lot of the things I end up sharing in these talks come from your correspondence, and I thought maybe tonight I'd start with one little note that I received that I really liked. My young son and I were listening to one of your podcasts while making dinner, and suddenly he looked at me and said, "I don't have any badness in me, just goodness. And that goodness keeps getting gooder and gooder every day." This is a good one for your refrigerator, you know. That goodness keeps getting gooder and gooder every day. Some of you might know that the derivation of the word good from Old English is very similar to words that have to do with coming together and belonging. And so what that means is that really our experience of basic goodness arises when we feel that sense of connectedness. And what we find in many spiritual traditions is that the word homecoming really has to do with coming home to that sense of goodness and belonging when we feel that sense of loving connection. And you find this in archetypal stories and myths and some of the great romance novels, that a lot of it's about separating, leaving home, getting lost in some way, and then coming back to discover belonging. Sometimes it's reconciliation, and sometimes it's seeing what was always there, but we didn't realize it. And in Buddhism, this kind of understanding of this process is that we incarnate, and there's a sense of separation and a sense of lostness, and that it's described in terms of forgetting who we are. It's like we've become identified with the wave, an egoic sense, and we've lost touch with our oceanness. And that the spiritual path is one of, acknowledging and honoring the uniqueness of our waveness, but sensing that we're made of ocean, sensing a larger belonging that really allows us to feel who we are with each other and this earth and this life. Tonight, in this particular talk, I'd like to draw on a very well-known Christian parable that I feel brings alive the currents of leaving home and rediscovering our belonging in a very beautiful, powerful way. And this is one that many of you know. It's called The Return of the Prodigal Son. And I'm going to base some of our exploration together on the book written by Henry Nouwen, Return of the Prodigal Son. And it's a book that I'll very much encourage you taking a look at. And what he did was he took the parable and then he based his understanding on the very famous Rembrandt rendering of the parable. And if you're interested in the Rembrandt, I brought a few pictures because they themselves are so evocative. So I'll begin by reading you the parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, let me have the share of the estate that will come to me." So the father divided the property between them. A few days later, the younger son got together everything he had and left for a distant country where he squandered his money on a life of debauchery. Now, when he had spent it all, that country experienced a severe famine, and now he began to feel the pinch, so he hired himself out to one of the local inhabitants who put him on the farm to feed the pigs. And he would willingly have filled himself with the husks the pigs were eating, but no one would let him have them. Then he came to his senses and said, "How many of my father's hired men have all the food they want and more, and here I am dying of hunger? I will leave this place and go to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired men.' So he left the place and went back to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with pity. He ran to the boy, clasped him in his arms, and kissed him. Then his son said, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, Bring out the best robe and bring it on him, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the calf we have been fattening and kill it. We will celebrate by having a feast, because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. Now the elder son was out in the fields, and on his way back, as he drew near the house, he could hear music and dancing. Calling one of the servants, he asked what it was all about. The servant told him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the calf we have been fattening because he has got him back safe and sound." He was angry then and refused to go in, and his father came out and began to urge him to come in. But he retorted to his father, "All these years I have slaved for you and never once disobeyed any orders of yours. You never offered me so much as a kid for me to celebrate with my friends. But for this son of yours, when he comes back after swallowing up your property, he and his loose women, you kill the calf we'd been fattening." The father said, "My son, you are with me always, and all I have is yours. But it was only right we should celebrate and rejoice because your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found." In 1983, Henry Nouwen, who, for those of you that haven't heard of him, is author, he's a philosopher, a Christian mystic, really, I'd say. He had a chance encounter with Rembrandt's picture. It was a copy of it, and was so moved by the image of the father really blessing the prodigal son. He was so moved, he found in himself this longing that he too wanted to have some father, God, some being, embrace him, take him back. That sense of, he too was unworthy in some way and really wanted to feel that love and compassion and forgiveness. So over the next 10 years, he studied the Rembrandt picture and kept going deeper and deeper into the parable and unfolding the meanings in it. And he found that he discovered in the parable how he was both the younger son, the one who had in some way not trusted where love was at home right here and had left home to go find it through the substitutes of achieving and getting approval and finding something out there. And he saw in himself the older brother, who was also the one that was being dutiful in some way and was in kind of a righteous anger and judgment towards others. He could see both sons in him. And what he discovered in this journey of 10 years as he meditated on this picture and this parable was that the transformation, the healing in his life came from being able to let in and receive the blessings of forgiveness. In other words, he had to let in love. He had to trust that love was here in order to discover that he was the father too. So that, I'm going to keep coming back to that because that's the nutshell of, that's right at the heart of the whole path of transformation. And the interesting question that many people have, because we often talk about being generous and loving others and forgiving others, but the emphasis on letting in love, that inquiry for all of us is, do we really let in love? Can we let in compassion? Can we let in forgiveness? So, what makes it so important, this letting in love? If we reflect on absolute love, it's non-directional. Absolute love is just a timeless field that's really the essence of what we are. And yet in the forgetting, as we forget our belonging to the ocean and become more contracted, in the forgetting, we create barriers. It's like the wave, or sometimes I think of a sea anemone because it's so obvious that when the sea anemone feels threatened, it contracts and gets tight. It's like the ocean can no longer wash through it. We don't allow this ocean, this life, the love that's here to wash through us when we get defended or when we're grasping after something. So the process of softening our boundaries and actually exploring what does it mean to let in becomes a radical and fundamental part of the process of opening back into that field of loving. So we're going to kind of go into that more, explore that dynamic. In the parable, love is always and already here. The father, it was almost like he didn't have to forgive his son. As soon as he saw his son, it was just it was compassion and welcome. There was joy in receiving his son. So what we get in the parable is that, and you can see it in the picture, and it's quite beautiful if you look, and again I invite you to look at these pictures. The son is kneeling with his head at his father's chest, and the father's two hands are on his son's shoulders. And one of the hands is very masculine, and it's got that kind of an affirmation of, you are goodness, you do belong, you are my son, you know. And the other hand is very feminine. The fingers are slender and they're more kind of close together with a lighter touch, and it's this comfort and soothing. It's kind of a delicate, sweet kind of loving. So when the parable talks about the father, they're really talking about, there's really in that the archetypes of both masculine and feminine, and that loving, that strength and tenderness of loving is always and already here. With the son, you see his head against the chest, and those two hands with the older son. Again, these words are so beautiful. He says, you are with me always. All I have is yours. It's like, how can we be apart? How can you compare? I don't love one more than the other. You are with me always. All I have is yours. We're one.